Hearts of Iron 4, the grand strategy game made by Paradox Interactive that was released back in 2016. And one of very few games that has been seeing an increase since then. I kid you not, the game has more and more and more players every single day from 2016, and it's still increasing. Well, to be fair, I can understand why, and we're going to be discussing this right now. And we're going to be discussing whether this game is actually worth to buy more than half a decade from its launch. So, let's get it started. If you haven't played any of the Hearts of Iron 4, well, it's a grand strategy game by the Paradox Interactive, and if you have played any other games like Europa Universalis or Victoria or Crusader Kings, you're going to be vaguely familiar with how this game actually plays. But not Stellaris though. Stellaris is actually completely different. The game is happening during the World War II period, and it is all about controlling a single country during this time of turmoil and war. And the game takes from the period from 1936 to 1946. And you're given an ability to control any country that existed during this period. And I mean independent country. And your goal is basically to lead this country during this 10-year period. Well, that's as simple explanation as it can get. But how it plays? Let's discuss that. So when you launch the game and when you launch a single player, you actually are given a choice first to when to start the game. You can start the game in 1936, a few years before World War II, or you can start in 1939, just a few days before the World War II. After that, you choose your country, and yes, you literally have the choice of every single country that existed during this period, either 1936 or 1939, and you start a game. And immediately when you start the game, you will be bombarded with a bunch of interface menus and things to do and troops and things, etc, etc. It will be so overwhelming at first that most likely you'll just turn the game off, delete, and never think of this again. Yes, I almost did this the first time I actually turned it on. You see, the game is incredibly complex, and this game does not have a learning curve. It has learning cliff. Yes, I mean a cliff. And there is actually a, logical reason behind that. You see, the war is not just troops battling with each other, right? So if you have an army, well, your army should consist of different units. To have different units, you need to have actually technology to have this unit. To have a technology, you will need to have a resources to actually, do some researches. To have a resources, you need to be able to control territories. To have a territories, you need to have politicians and policies in order to, control these territories. To have that, you need to have a certain ideologies. And to have ideologies, you need to have a certain type of leader, and to have that, you need to have a certain decisions made on a focus tree, and etc, etc, and it entangles so deep that it will make you crazy at first, thinking that this game is impossible to play, and it's like playing with an Excel spreadsheet. But you see, this intimidating difficulty that you will encounter at first, it is not becoming any worse. Because what you will see is basically what you'll get. And all you need to do is now just to understand what is happening by just playing the game. So you play the game, you control the political situation, you control the economical situation, you control the war, and immediately you will understand why people are getting crazy with this game. This game is the most deep and detailed World War simulator that you will find anywhere. And yes, I mean it. If you have ever thought about how the events in World War II would go if certain things would happen, well, you can literally play this in this game. Including, you can actually completely change the direction of the countries by literally creating an alternate history. And all this done in this 10-year period of time. And because every single country, especially the major countries, have their own focus trees, which is basically a tech tree that allows you to dictate how your country will develop and what directions it will take, has a completely different researches and technologies, different ideologies, different territories, different resources. Every single playthrough with every single different state will be completely different. And all you need to do to experience this is just overcome this learning cliff. And to be fair, it's not an easy task because game has first awful tutorial because it literally does not teach you how to play. It just tells you what the different buttons do. And the game just drops you into the game, immediately. And yeah, the best thing that you can do is just look for tutorials on how to play. And thankfully, because the game has incredibly active and very large community, you're gonna find a bunch of different tutorials. So great, now you actually learn how to play, and the game is very interesting, very fun. You can actually control all the fronts. You control both army, navy, and airborne. You control the policy, you control the politics, you control diplomacy. You play almost every state you can. Yes, okay, this is at least few dozen hours of gameplay. Well, to be fair, it's at least 100, but still, let's say a few dozen. What's next? Oh, and then you will discover multiplayer. And my god, the multiplayer is like discovering a completely different game. Because unlike other Paradox games and unlike other grand strategy games, it's actually incredibly easy to start the game and just jump into it and just leave it anytime that you want, because it literally does not take weeks to complete a single multiplayer session. Because game occupies only a 10-year long period, and it can actually take only a few hours to complete this 10-year period, the gameplay sessions are incredibly quickly, and you can jump to the gameplay session just anytime, play it. If you don't like it, just leave it and just go to another session and just continue from there. It's incredibly fun and incredibly easy. And if you don't have a DLCs, which we're going to discuss in a bit, if someone in the lobby has the DLCs, you will have them as well. That's actually a pretty great way to actually test the DLCs as well. And there are also entire lobbies made for different mods. And well, now let's just talk about mods, because this is like basically a base part of the game. Well, if you play the game and if you played the game extensively and play the multiplayer and everything, and now you're bored with hundreds of hours of gameplay and in World War II, well, now what about playing in World War I? With mods, you can actually play entirely separate campaign in World War I, and you can even go and play it in multiplayer as well. Or you played dozens or maybe even hundreds of hours of that and got bored there as well. What about playing in a world, in a time period where Germany won the World War I? Well, you can do that as well and play completely alternate history, which is insanely good as well. Oh, you want to continue the game after 1946 and want to play during the Cold War period? Well, you can do that as well with the mods. Oh, you want to play in a modern world in early 2000s or even 2010s? Well, you can do that as well. Oh, and yeah, in all these time periods, you can still control every single country or entire world. And imagine doing this in a modern world where there are far more countries. Oh, you want something a bit more extreme? How about playing a Lord of the Rings universe? Well, I don't know why you would want to do that, but yep, you can do that as well. So you want to play in a Star Wars universe? Well, okay, you can do that as well. And all this done with thousands of different mods. You can do so many things with mods that this unlocks entirely new floodgate to just completely new game. You will simply amaze how many things the mods will add and expand. And after that, you will understand why people are actually spending thousands of hours playing this game. I kid you not, the majority of people will actually play thousands of hours. So now let's talk about elephant in the room, and it's a DLCs. When usually people are buying base games, they usually pay close attention to the DLCs and whether the game has very extensive DLCs or not. And yes, as any Paradox games, Hearts of Iron 4 has like flood of different DLCs that you think that you will need in order to play this game, which is not true. Don't think about that. You won't need those DLCs at least until you will realize and understand that you like this game and that you just exhausted all the gameplay elements that this game has to offer you in a base game. Do not even think about getting any DLCs because they are not essentials, at least until you will go through few playthroughs. Don't even think about them. Majority of the DLCs are adding just additional focus trees for different countries and adding some more little gameplay adjustments, which are important, but if you have only a base game, you will simply not realize and understand what you're missing. And it's completely okay. So yeah, don't think about DLCs at least at first until you will understand that you love this game or not. And now let's get to the pricing, how much this game will cost you, and then discuss whether it's actually worth it or not. So game is available on Steam for $39.99 for tier 1 countries and $19.99 for tier 2 countries, and it can go as low as $9.99 for tier 1 countries and $4.99 for tier 2 countries. And yes, you can actually get this game for fairly cheap, not fairly, for really cheap, and it's very often on a sale. But now the question, is it worth it or not, and whether you should get it after all this praise of this game and after all these statistics about game constantly growing for half a decade, is it worth to get this game or not? And it's actually a very difficult question to answer, because anyone who played this game will tell you that this game was absolutely worth it, and when they bought this game, it was one of the best decisions that they've made. But in reality, when you get this game, you will get in either of three camps. First, you will either love this game, like with all of your heart. You will either hate this game viciously, or you will hate that you love this game. There are literally only just three camps. There's no one else. I still have yet to see an individual who thinks that Hearts of Iron is an okay game. They either love it, hate it, or they hate that they love it. But why so? And all goes down to this learning cliff that I was talking about. This game is pretty difficult to get into. It requires a lot of patience and a lot of time and a lot of work in order to understand this game. And if you're willing to give this game time, if you are willing just to give this game time, then you will simply fall in love with this game. And majority of people who just hate this game, they're just simply not willing to give this game time, or they just hate that they spent so much time playing this game. I've seen so many people playing thousands of hours and now just hating this game so much. So yeah, this happens too. And this learning cliff is actually the thing that will probably turn you down from this game. And no matter what's the price, if you are willing to give this game a chance, if you love this period, and if you want to know more about this period, and if you want to experience this period in a game, then for a sale, it's absolutely worth it. Don't get this game for the full price, because you don't know whether you will actually love it or not. You really don't. Just for sale, it's 100% worth it. Just even to have it in your library, because you might not give it a chance right now, but you might give it a chance later. I actually bought this game in 2017, and I only started playing this game early 2021. Yes, I actually didn't give this game a chance back then, but then I gave it, and I actually did not regret this. So overall, whether this game is actually worth it or not, if you're willing to give this game time, then it is worth to buy on a discount, because you still don't know whether you will love it or not. But if you're not willing to give this game at least, I don't know, maybe 10 hours and quite a lot of YouTube tutorial watching and failing, then no, this game is not worth it for you. And this game is not for everyone, but for the people for whom this game is the absolute blast. And these people will not regret getting this game, especially for the discount price, because it's simply an insane bargain. Getting the game for $5 and getting thousands of hours of gameplay is simply as good as a bargain in gaming as you can get. Well, this will be it for today. A lot of people actually requested this review, and finally now I was able to deliver it. Thank you for being here with me. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about Hearts of Iron 4, whether you played it or not, or whether you're thinking that you want to purchase this game or not. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for being here with me. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. See ya.